we are.
Okay. It's 5:45. Let's call the meeting to order for the public hearing for Policy 4060, Native American Policies and Procedures. And the floor is now open for any comments from anyone that might have signed up. Stephanie, has anyone signed up yet? All right, there's no comment at this time. We'll give them a short time here and then make sure if somebody shows up, and if not, we'll close it out.
Stephanie, do you know if it's permissible for us to have other conversations about other elements while we're waiting on public comment? If somebody were to send something or to walk in, we would stop. Do you know if that's allowable? Because it's nothing that we'll take action on right now, but it's just points of information. Is that okay, you think? Mr. McKinney, do you think it would be all right?
I think it would be. Brandon, would you go back there and tell those ladies, if somebody does walk in, to let us know, and then let's do that.
And I thought that we could use the time to go over the DPI Facilities Needs Survey, because there's a lot of information in that. And it may not take the whole time, but it would give you all an opportunity to ask questions about it. We, as a school system, we are required every 5 years to reassess what position our facilities are in as far as needing to replace them or upgrade them. And then that information goes to DPI, and they put it with all the other school systems. And to my understanding, DPI and the general legislature uses that as a planning tool for the future. Now, primarily, they are interested in the instructional buildings. And when we go through this, I'll show you that I have actually added what would be considered a non-instructional concern. I hesitate to say that anything that has to do with the school system is not instructional, because everything affects instruction. But they may look at that and say, well, that doesn't apply, and then just ignore it, okay? What I want to draw your attention to, though, is if you've got your folders with you, I want you to look at the first page where it says DPI Facilities Needs Survey, average daily membership. Those numbers come to us from Raleigh. I asked Stephanie for all of these numbers, and she gave them to me, but as I got into this report more and more, I found out that really they've got these pieces figured out for us in a lot of ways. Now, Cody, I don't know if you understand the concept of the Cherokee Extension School. I will do my best to explain that to you, but I'm really thankful that Stephanie is here, because really, this is a school on paper that we support financially because of our impact aid funding. Did I say that correctly? Yes? And every student that goes to Cherokee is not necessarily being funded by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. Okay? There are some that are entitled to additional funding because they could be enrolled in our school system as a non-Native American. Did I say that correctly, Stephanie?
That is correct. They're not an enrolled member. Correct.
A non-enrolled member, okay? And so every year we have to ask, no, we are told.
And it's funding from the Bureau of Indian Education through ISEP, which is the Indian Student Equalization Program. That's the funding source. And it goes based on enrolled members.
It goes based on enrolled members. And so there's a dollar amount for each student that comes out of our funding and goes to the Cherokee Central Schools program, all right? Okay. And when it gets to a certain level, it also entitles them to a teacher. For a number of years, there were not enough students that would equal providing a teacher for them. We've crossed that boundary now, and so we're providing that as well, okay? Now, we have no authority over those students. That teacher actually is under the supervisory control of the Cherokee Central Schools, all right? But the funding for that comes from Swain County Schools. Am I speaking correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's how come you see at the top, School 312 is the Cherokee Extension School. Now, I have asked in Raleigh, I have asked for them to remove this school from our list, and I've gone as far as I can go right now, and they cannot remove that school. So we have to put student numbers in. They calculate student numbers for us, but for everything else as far as facilities are concerned, we put 0, okay? And you will see that at the end of this report. We just zero it out and keep moving forward because this is really about facilities, all right? Now, if you turn the page, you should have a graph that goes horizontally. That graph is also provided to us by DPI, and it is a projection of student enrollment for the next 10 years. And I cannot pretend to tell you how they've come up with those numbers other than to say that they're looking at what numbers we have now, what numbers we've had in the past, and they're following trends, all right? And these are the numbers that they use to calculate from. We don't give them to DPI. Does that make sense? Okay? Now, there are other you'll turn the next page, capacity summary, 0 to 5 years. And let me stop right there. Do we have anyone with a comment?
We do have a comment.
Okay, we can come back to this, all right?
It's more of a question, and the question is, how does the impact aid hearing affect the forms we filled out previously? So just to let the public know, the forms that were filled out previously are survey forms that we must collect every year to determine if a student is federally impacted, meaning that they either live on federal lands, live on Indian lands, or if their parents work on Indian lands or work on federal lands. This public hearing and the policy that we're have the public hearing for in no way affects those surveys. This policy is the Native American Policies and Procedures, and the purpose of this policy is to make sure that we provide equal participation of Native American students within the education programs and activities, and that we do communicate with Native American communities, and that we also involve the parents and tribal officials with our policies and procedures for education programs and activities. So that's the only comment we have right now.
Did that make sense to all of you? Are there, and I probably should have done this to begin with, and I don't, Mr. McKinney, I don't mean to drive the meeting, but there may be questions about impact aid, impacted schools, and all of these pieces that you all have, and Stephanie is really our expert on that. So are there any questions that are coming to your mind right now that you would like for her to answer? If you come up with any at any point, please don't hesitate to stop us, okay? We've got about 5 minutes left in the public hearing time, and if it's okay with you, we can go back and talk about this so we don't just sit around, okay? Is that all right? On the page that has capacity summary 0 to 5 years, I want to draw your attention to one number that doesn't make sense, but I think that I can explain it to you. If you'll look at the section that says current capacity there in the upper left, do you see the number 934?
Yep, noticed that.
We have about 550 students in the high school, okay? The reason that 934 is calculated there is because whenever I go in, they ask how many classrooms of particular types do we have. And they automatically, the program automatically calculates the number of students that could fit in those classrooms if they had max capacity. That includes our new STEM rooms, that includes the gym, that includes all of our CTE program classrooms like ag, shop, all of those. And whenever you put that you have that classroom, out of honesty, it automatically calculates the number of students. So when I got to the bottom of that list and it had 934, I said, well, wait a minute. There is no way that we could squeeze 934 students on that campus and do it in a safe manner. I have no control over that. That's the number that they use. You'll notice that planned capacity in the future, over on the right in the same column, has 568. And that's because they have calculated it a different way. Now, it's my intent to call the person who's in charge of this and say, okay, help me understand this number, and is there something that we've done wrong? I've tried it multiple ways, and it keeps coming out with a really large number. All right? So I don't know what that's going to imply in the future. You have any other questions about anything, any numbers on that page?
No, that stood out to me, and I was trying to figure that out myself.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been, just a couple of years ago, the reason we had to expand it, we were out of space.
Yes.
I mean, literally, out of classroom space. So I don't know how that, I couldn't figure that out either.
What about the planned capacity future for K through 5 0?
Say that again.
The future for planned capacity, K through 5, it says 0, additional renovation.
Whenever I went in and started putting in places, Travis, that I think that we need to look at expansion or renovations, it begins to calculate numbers again. And what I believe that is saying is that based on what I have put in there, that there is no planned capacity increases with the renovations that I'm thinking about for the future. So if I had put a new building in, the capacity number would have gone up significantly. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, kind of looking at the pre-K too, you know, of course, we'd love to do something there, but.
They don't, in this program, pre-K doesn't count towards capacity. Because pre-K is not a DPI supervised program. That comes under the Department of Health and Human Services. I don't know why, but it's been that way for several years now. Okay? Now, I will tell you that in the elementary sections on this, I did plan for 8 more classrooms for the pre-K, because I believe that we have to, as a board, we have to, as a school system, start moving forward and seriously considering how can we take care and even expand our pre-K program. And we need to look at how we can do that, first to benefit the students in the most, in the best way, but we also have to look at it from a point of economics, in my opinion. As I said in the opening pages up there, this is not something that's written in stone. This is something to start conversation with, in my opinion. And I think that there are some other pieces that we need to put in place. And then we, as a group, need to get together with the county commissioners and to develop a 5 to 10 year plan on how do we do these things then, because we see that they're important for education. Does that make sense to you? Okay? If we look at a full one size, one place fits all of our pre-K students, it's going to cost us twice as much as if we do it in sections at the 2 elementary schools. That's a conversation to have down the road. Okay? What are you thinking, Cody?
Just thinking.
Okay. All right. We're at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
So I've beat your eardrums for 15 minutes. Thank you.
We have had no more requests. All right, then we'll call that meeting closed, and we'll open the regular meeting. We're going to start out first with a pledge by Travis and a prayer by Cody.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to come together once again. Thank you for the health and safety and welfare of all those that are here. We pray, dear Heavenly Father, that you give us the wisdom and the knowledge to make the best decisions for the health, safety, and welfare of all the students, faculty, staff, and everyone involved with the school system and the education here in Swain County. We ask that you'll just continue to watch over us, keep us safe, and lead, guide, and direct us in everything that we do. For it's in your precious Son's name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. see if I got all these changes on here. Let's call this meeting to order. The approval of the agenda. Mr. Sale, do you want to attempt to tell us how we're going to change some of the agenda with the change?
Because of some of the things that I believe that we need to discuss this evening, I believe that it would be best if we reorganize our agenda a little bit. I would recommend that we have Mr. Brown come and speak to us first as A, that immediately following Mr. Brown, that we call our schools to come and speak to us about their NC STAR plans. West is not able to be here with us tonight due to some illness. And then I would recommend that after the NC STAR reports, that the C element would be budget amendments with Ms. Treadway. And then, Mr. McKinney, I would recommend that we have a conversation first about the COVID status of the school system before we go to a closed session.
All right.
All right.
That would work.
And then I think that immediately after that, we need to go to closed session and have conversation about some items. I already have an agenda that I believe that I've prepared for you.
Right.
And then, because some of that has to do with personnel and some other issues, and then I would recommend that we follow the agenda in the same order that it is listed below that.
Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Do I have a motion that we approve that?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as modified, as discussed by Mr. Sell.
Second.
All right, motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Okay. Then we'll move to the audit report. Mr. Brown.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Y'all, everybody doing okay? Good, good. My name is Robert Brown. I'm with a firm, accounting firm, Boggs, Trump and Brown. We've done the audit for a while now, and I guess you get me again this year. It's usually Dan Boggs, so I guess you still got the second team. So we'll just go right into it. Really, what I want to do is just basically go over our opinion letters. That's generally what we as auditors do, is just provide these letters as our opinion on the financial statements. The first letter in there is on, well, let's see. It's really page 1, but there's not really a page number on there. It's called Independent Auditor's Report. If you'll just keep flipping, do you see, if you get to page 2, it's the one before it. So really, this is our audit report, and this basically covers pages 4 through 75, which is our opinion on the financial statements. I'll just kind of highlight. I won't read this. I won't read all this to you, but I'll just kind of highlight some of the, or just highlight some of the information in here. First, in the first paragraph, we have audited the accompanying financial statements of the governmental activities, the business activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Swain County Board of Education as of and for the year ending June 30, 2020. Second paragraph. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Next paragraph, auditor's responsibility. Our responsibility as auditors is to express an opinion on these financial statements based on our audit. So if you'll flip to the second page, we have our opinion. So this is what we do all our work for, is to come down to this one opinion on these financial statements. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the Swain County Board of Education as of June 30, 2020. So what that says is, if you look at pages 4 through 75, we really have an unmodified opinion, and we believe that it's materially correct. So, based on our audit. So, I won't read through that whole opinion, but that's basically the gist of it. Okay, so the second part of our audit deals with compliance of our major federal and state programs. And if you would flip to page 76. This first report is basically related to internal control and compliance over financial reporting. So each one of these have an internal control feature and a compliance feature. So as it relates to internal control over financial reporting, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider material weaknesses as it relates to our assessment of internal control over financial reporting. If you look on page 77, as it relates to compliance and other matters over financial reporting, last sentence of that paragraph, the results of our test disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported under governmental auditing standards. So no findings. That's good. So starting on page 78, this is a report on the major federal programs we audited as it relates to the assessment of internal control and compliance. If you look on page 79, the opinion for each major federal program. In our opinion, the Swain County Board of Education complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major federal programs for the year ended June 30th, 20. So that report covers the federal programs that we audited as major, and I will go over that in just a second, which ones we audited as major. And then next section, internal control over compliance as it relates to major federal programs. Second to last paragraph, we did not identify any deficiencies in the internal control over compliance that we consider to be material weaknesses as it relates to federal programs. So on page 80, same report, except this is dealing with our audit of major state programs. And if you look at page 81, we give our opinion on the compliance for each major state program. In our opinion, the Swain County Board of Education complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major state programs for the year ending June 30, 20. And then as it relates to internal control over compliance for major state programs, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control over compliance that we consider to be material weaknesses. So the gist of that is there were no findings as it relates to one, the financial reporting or compliance. So, and then start on page 82, it's kind of a summary of our findings. And you can see at the bottom of page 82 is the identification of the major federal programs that we audited this year. Impact aid and special ed cluster. And then on page 83, about midway through, identification of the major state programs that we audited as major: State Public School Fund, Public School Building Capital Fund. And I would like to point out on page 85 and 86, 85 and 86 just shows you the a listing of all the federal and state programs that we chose from and that y'all got this year. So, any question on that so far? So what I want to do now is just kind of go over, just briefly, if you look at page 66, and I'm going to look at kind of 66 through 70 right now. 66 is basically the general fund, which is basically your county appropriation monies. 67 is called a special revenue fund, and that's where you have the impact aid monies, and that pretty much comprises about 70% of the revenue coming through there. So just for the year, the fund balance, everybody's always interested in how your fund balance did for the year. If you combine those two, basically your fund balance was up about approximately $305,000 for the year. So I won't go over too much of that. It's really, we didn't make any significant entries to what Stephanie's already presented in terms of the fund balance. And Stephanie, if you need to input anything, you can. So the other thing I just want to mention, on page 75, as it relates to the food service fund, you can see that you had a fairly significant increase in your food service fund, and it is as Stephanie has said probably, that you got 100% reimbursement on all meals served this year, and so that your federal reimbursements were up significantly this year. Since COVID, right. Yeah, it's COVID related. So, so really, I don't have any bad things to say this year. It's all good, and that's really all I wanted to go over. Unless there's any questions about it. Or anything else you think we need to talk about?
So you're comfortable where our fund balance is?
I'm comfortable, yes.
This lady right here's worked hard on that.
She does a fine job. I can't talk enough about her. It's always nice coming up here because, you know, it's pretty easy to audit the work Stephanie and her staff does. So.
All right.
So.
Ms. McKinney, I'll tell you, I need to tell you and everyone that one of the reasons that Stephanie has worked so hard to get our fund balance into the strong position that it's in is because with COVID and with the unpredictable nature of federal budgets, she wants to make sure that regardless of what our impact aid funding does, that we're going to be in a strong position. And I know that some people might look at that total fund balance number and say, well, that's outrageous. No, it's not. When you consider the fact that we rely on probably $2 million or more to come from our impact aid. And I'm bringing that up for a reason. Because right now we are working hard to get our impact aid forms in. And with the COVID push in our rooms that have caused students to stay home for Plan C, we are really struggling to get those folks to participate and get those numbers back. If we don't get those numbers, if we don't get the forms back from them, we could be looking at a $500,000 loss. And I'm not exaggerating. It could be a $500,000 loss. Have I spoken correctly, Stephanie?
That's correct, although they are giving us the ability to use last year's numbers if last year's numbers are more than what we are able to get in with our surveys this year. It still would be better to get our numbers back up because each year they've been decreasing. So
it's critical that the community, if anyone is watching, and that we continue to talk about this, that we get those forms in so that the fund balance can stay where it is. Mm-hmm. And that way we can breathe a little more easily whenever federal budget time comes around, and even state budget time comes around.
Certainly in these times, the uncertain times we're in right now, you definitely want to kind of keep a strong fund balance. Right. That's for sure.
Thank you for giving me that moment.
Fine,
I didn't even ask for it, but I just took it.
Do you understand this concept of impact aid and all?
Yes.
You have quite, okay. And there's two types of impact aid. One's to the students we have here that are affected by federal government or live federal aid, whatever. And the other is in lieu of lost state revenue in the park. That's a different category of impact aid, right?
right, it's based on the land.
Right.
And the loss of tax revenue on the land itself.
The other was, though, we have to have documentation of these folks to turn it in, and then we get that. And the other reason we need a higher fund balance is we never know when those payments are going to come. So we may be struggling to find money waiting on an impact aid payment that's part of the budget. So we have to keep a little higher than fund balance than most school boards do. And Stephanie's done a good job of getting that back up there where it should be. And of course, we have a figure that's recommended to us to do. So, any questions of these folks? Or?
And if anyone has questions later, I'm happy to answer them. Just review the report, and any questions you might have, just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Ms. McKinney, every year, our school system and our schools works to put together a plan to help guide us through the school year. In the past, we've called those our school improvement plans. Last year, I believe it was, we shifted from the state school improvement planning process to something called NC STAR, because we have been told and know that using that process has helped school systems improve their educational opportunities and instruction. Tonight, I'd like for our school systems to present their NC STAR plans to you. Trina, I'm going to put you on the spot. And Brandon, if you would please, if you could give us a quick, and I'm serious about quick, breakdown of our district school NC STAR plan, please.
You good? Okay, just to explain just a little bit about NC STAR and the process. The schools are, there are, oh goodness, over 130 indicators that they have to choose from, that they can work on. And they're given a list of the 12 key indicators, and most of them have chosen indicators from that list, but they may have also chosen some of the more minor ones if they find in their assessment of their school that they need to do so. And so you'll hear some of the same ones being talked about tonight, and then some of them will be a little bit different as we go through. And then the district is totally different than what the school has. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the district. We chose 4 indicators. It's the same 4 indicators we chose last year. So if you were here last year, you will hear some familiarity as we go through. The first one is A01, and I think you guys have copies of all this in your books there. And it's basically saying the superintendent and the county office district leaders are responsible for the school improvement. And so underneath that, we chose to do several action plans. The first one we're going to do is set PLC guidelines, and PLC is professional learning communities. That means it could be teams like first grade team, it could be the art department, it could be the math department, depending on the school level and how their teams work together. We want to make some really specific guidelines for them so that they understand when they come together, this is the data that we need to be working on, this is what we're going to look at for each child, and then what we're going to do about that to help fix the gaps that the children have or to accelerate them, both ways. We want to make sure that we are working toward the implementation of Double Grad. You heard about that last year. We want to continue that. So what is a 12th grader when they leave Swain County High School? What does that look like? What is a double grad? What do we expect out of them? And we want to make sure that we're expanding that to the community and getting them behind us because we cannot do this without them. We need every stakeholder involved. We need our community leaders. We need our parents. We need grandparents. We need aunts and uncles. Everybody needs to be on board with double grad. Excuse me. As part of that, we're going to work on the Maroon Devil Way. You're going to hear that a lot. This is the Maroon Devil Way. How do we get to Devil Grad? It's the Maroon Devil Way. So in kindergarten, what do you need to learn in kindergarten to be a Devil Grad at 12th grade? How do you need to behave in kindergarten? What's your attendance need to look like? What soft skills do you need? We're going to work on that and frame that out so that every grade level knows what they're working toward from pre-K to 12th grade. And that's going and our staff members, the Maroon Devil Way. We're going to work on monitoring our indicators, making sure we're looking at these indicators. We're not just saying we're going to do these and then never coming back to them, which sometimes happened with our other process. With this process, we can't really do that. We have to look at these monthly and make sure we're checking up on them. And that'll be true for all the schools. Okay, that's the first indicator. Any questions about that? I know I'm going through fast, but I don't want to be here all night. Okay, the next 2 indicators kind of go hand in hand. So A05 is the student-centered approach and instructional framework to inform individualized learning plans. You're going to hear a lot about individualized learning. from the state all the way down to the district level. We want to make sure that we are giving the kids exactly what they need when they need it. Okay, so Mr. Sutton's been working on this indicator, and he's already made some progress with this. So he has reestablished our curriculum council from teacher leaders of the district, and so they're coming in to be able to help us make some decisions and help us set up some of the frameworks that we're wanting to go through. He has finalized the instructional framework. So teachers understand, this is where we're gonna work from. You know, we're gonna do this, this, and this for every kid, and this is what's expected in the classroom. And so there's no question about it. It's right out there for everybody to see. We're gonna work on making sure our lesson planning is effective and that it meets the needs of all of our kids. And then one big thing that we're gonna work on this year is we're gonna work on identifying our academic assessments. Right now, we are using several assessments. Some are dictated by the state. We can't help that. But what is Swain County Schools going to use to say, this kid's made a year's growth? What are we going to use? And so we're going to be doing some pilots with some different companies as for our assessment platforms, and working on one of those right now just to make sure we've got the right one for our district, because we want to make sure it works for our teachers and our students. The next one, CO8, basically says that the district implements and measures the effectiveness of PD, of professional development. And so the effectiveness part of that, measuring the effectiveness part of that, is a real big push for me, because I think sometimes we just give PD and give PD and give PD, and here's all these ideas, and then we never go back to see, is it being implemented in the classroom? Was it even worth our time? So we want to make sure that we're doing that. And so we're going to use several action plans under that to do that. We're going to make sure, again, the PLC structure is in order, that professional learning community is in order, and that they are in there with their teaching and learning coaches and the curriculum council, and working on sharing ideas and getting professional development, and so that they have the opportunity to do that. And then a big one will be using our walkthrough data. Just to be honest, we've not been doing many walkthroughs because COVID. And kids weren't in the building for a long time, and now they are. So we're going to get back to doing that, and we're going to use some of the observation data to really direct our professional development so that you're getting what you need. Now, sometimes everybody just has to have it because somebody says from above us, you have to have this. You know, like we just did blood-borne pathogens. Everybody had to do it. But we want to direct our PD so that I'm getting exactly what I need to help my students in my classroom. And so we're going to really work on that. Any questions about those two indicators? And then the last one, EO3, is all about communication between all our stakeholders. And so we want to make sure that we are letting the community know that our pre-K is available and how they need to be enrolled. Because there's still a lack of education that, hey, we've got this pre-K up here and you can get your child in here. And you know, of course, we always want to expand that. That's a whole nother action plan. We want to build our brand, our Swain County Schools brand. And Mr. Burrows is working on that so that when you see it on social media, that's Swain County Schools. And no matter where it is, just like you would see Ingles or Pepsi or McDonald's, you know what it is. And so he's going to be working on that. Revisiting the mobile app. I think that they worked through a company last year and that kind of fell through. Is that correct, Mr. Sell?
That was a bust.
Yeah, so we're gonna, he's revisiting, looking for that, so that everything's in one place. You don't have to go to Facebook, you don't have to go to Twitter, you don't have to go here, it's in one place, it's on our app, and all the information will be there. And then, and he's been really good about this, using small chunks of information and pushing that out a little bit at a time so that we're not overwhelming our parents, giving them what they need to know, but just doing it a little bit at a time. And so that's the last one there. Any questions about that?
Okay?
Thank you.
Pre-K, please. Please don't hesitate to ask clarifying questions and slow us down. We're trying to honor your time because we've got so many other things to do tonight as well. Okay? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Scheid. I'm a teacher at pre-K. I'm filling in for Miss Carson tonight, so I'm reading from my little paper. So we're doing a lot of exciting things at pre-K. Some of the key indicators we've assessed ourselves as achieved regarding social emotional is Miss Penny Stewart has taught kindergarten after school last year and incorporated pieces of our second step social emotional curriculum in her lesson plans. And she reported back to us that the children really loved the curriculum and witnessed them independently using the skills that had been taught in pre-K, such as fair ways to play and how to calm down. Mr. Sale witnessed my friends last week learning how to calm their bodies down, and we have lanyards that we use to help them calm their bodies down. And so we use that, and our kindergartners this year are using that in their classrooms as well. We also, after coming back from Christmas break, the teachers got together and we noticed that students are really remembering the steps for calming down, the rules for group time concerning focusing, and are using self-talk independently to stay on task and remember what they're supposed to be doing. Self-talk is really important at our age. Self-talk is a big skill taught and modeled in the second step curriculum. We consistently use this in classrooms for following directions, anticipating what comes next, how to calm down, expectations at certain times of day. We also really take advantage of our teaching teams, WC partnerships with child psychologist Dr. Kathy Griss and speech therapist Laura Chavette, as well as our preschool special ed coordinator, Ms. Christy Wyke. So some things that we're really working on is we're developing a new system regarding data cut points to determine where students fall in the MTSS process and their needs for interventions. This has been really big in our program this year. We pull our created curriculum checkpoint data and look at potential flags for each of the 5 developmental domains. And we also look at our formal assessments that we do 3 times a year on our students and compare those to see what is the next step for individual children. We also are working on devising a more cohesive plan for intervention data points, collection, monitoring, with the goal of providing effective interventions that will lead to concise, easy referrals for students who need them. Our goal is to get all of our referrals done by middle of the year because we only have so long before they go to kindergarten. So if we use all the data we can collect, we have that cut point. March is like the cut point because after March, we really don't have the process to get going, to get kids referral if they need. So that's about it. Any questions?
I hope that you're picking up that some of the pieces that Katrina spoke about, and Brandon, we didn't give you a chance to speak, and I apologize. Some of the pieces that Katrina spoke about are being reflected in what Jen is talking about also, because when you start talking about data and cut points and things like that, and some of the skills that we're talking about, those are all part of what we want to do as a school system. We want to use those numbers to help guide us in a stronger direction as we need to. And I think that you'll continue to hear that as the others speak. Do you have any questions for Jen?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so
much.
Tricia, don't leave, please. East Elementary, Mr. Dunford. And Miss Wiggins. Well, I taught you under a different name.
I am going first. So, yeah, I'm Miss Wiggins. So we're going to tell you a little bit about our indicators. So the first one we did was to make sure that all teachers, we're trying to focus on behavior management. So what we're doing is we use MTSS to try to, I've talked about this before with my school counseling plan, but as this indicator, let me tell you this first, we are limited development only because we are trying to do this to fidelity right now, but we're not there yet. We're at the implementation stage. So we have created some behavior and SEL, which is social emotional learning supports, at each tier. So we've got that in writing that we're going to implement, hopefully, when things get a little bit more normal. So we have better data. We have developed Swain East MTSS procedures to get children and students referred to us. So it's just a step-by-step system to help us monitor behaviors and the academics. And then the last thing that we're looking at to help us know what we're doing with behavior and how much intervention that we do need, and I have all these in graphs, it's kind of hard to like just explain it to you. But we are using our MTS data from last year and we're comparing it to this year's data. I mean, it's completely different because we've done so much back and forth, like A/B. Some of the kids were full-time, some kids we haven't even seen. So it just tells us what kids are in each tier and what areas and what interventions that we need to focus on. So MTSS has been really great for us. And then we even have, these are the levels, the grade levels that need more attention based on our interventions. So this just tells us how well our interventions are working. You're next.
All right, the next goal we have is A401, and this is about implementing a tier instructional system to allow teachers to deliver evidence-based instruction aligned with the needs of students across all tiers. And tier 1 instruction, we're aiming at about 80% of our students to show proficiency through this delivery. Teachers continue to monitor students that haven't yet reached proficiency using tier 1 instruction, and we plan on how we're going to differentiate instruction for those who are not to meet their needs. And the entire staff will understand that tier 2 instruction can be utilized within the classroom as well as through means outside the class. We'll be training to differentiate students using the tier 2 intervention strategies as often as possible. The evidence we're using is the early reading results. It was iStation and now it's through Edmonton, was that right?
Yeah,
And Moby Max. Right now what we're having trouble with is getting everybody in there to take these benchmarks. The first one was rather low. I think this one has been higher, mainly because we have a lot of C students that came back and we have them eyeball to eyeball now. So I guess we're saying we're doing this during a pandemic. Maybe we should say that after everything we say is during a pandemic. All right, back to you.
Okay. Our next goal is my goal, which is monitoring SEL. So we've really seen a huge correlation between behavior, academics, SEL. So their social emotional learning, their emotional states really affects behaviors, academics, all of that. It's hard for them to learn if they're coming from, a bad place. So we utilize Leader in Me. Everyone I think in our district does that. So we also have a school counselor. We use Appalachian Community Services. We both have, you can't use Appalachian unless it's a tier 3, which those are our 5 to 8% of our population. So that is a pretty formalized procedure and referral process. So for me, I see tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 kids. But we do have our MTSS data point. It's a referral form that we fill out, and all the teachers can say they need academic help, they need social emotional, they need to see, we need to see them at school, which is, attendance. So we monitor all that through our MTSS process. We also are doing social emotional learning trainings, and we are learning how to address adverse childhood experiences. So, you're next.
Our next goal is B303, and this is something Mr. Clapsaddle wanted to focus on, and that's the principal monitoring curriculum and classroom instruction regularly and providing time and clear constructive feedback to teachers. And that's by him conducting the observations as required and also being more systematic with intentional focus on specific teaching strategies. And as a teacher, I will have to say that I see Mr. Clapsaddles pop into my classroom every day. And I think that's beneficial for the students as well as for the teachers.
Okay. Our last one is us communicating regularly with parents, guardians, about expectations for them, and the importance of, learning and doing the curriculum at home. So what we are doing to do this is we communicate via Facebook, Dojo, all of these platforms. We do face-to-face meetings. We do Google Classroom. So our main goal right now is to help parents to understand what their students are learning. I know Ms. Savedra does a lot of trainings she did before the pandemic, just to explain, the Moby Max assessments, the iStation results. So just, continuing to do that to help parents understand what the kids are learning and where their kids are. So that's all we have. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you.
Like I said, West is not able to be here this evening. We'll bring them in at another time. The middle school is here, Mr. Kerr and Miss Eddie.
Hello. I'm seventh grade math teacher, and
If I could ask one thing real quick. I'm new to some of the acronyms.
Yes.
So if the first time you say it, would you please say the entire thing? Then you can use the acronyms from then on, but that way I have a little bit of idea of what we're talking about. We're using a lot of acronyms, so that just helps me out.
that's fine. Since I'm the math teacher, I'll throw in a couple of formulas as well, just to make it more exciting for you, do anything I can, help you out. So I'm pretty much just going to read this. I will answer questions as needed, but I think, as we all know, this year is unprecedented. And at the middle school, our overarching goal is the SEL, or social emotional learning environment of our kids, and just the changes that they've gone through and supporting them and what they are facing and what all of us are facing. And so to us, the biggest thing that we're doing right now is we're trying to provide a healthy learning environment for all of our students and staff. And we're trying to support each other as we work through everything that all of us are facing on a regular basis. And then, that being said, of course, obviously we're trying to meet their educational goals at the same time, but, within the confines of what we're working with. So each of our subject groups are now meeting monthly as a PLC, or professional learning community. Or is it community or committee?
It's the community.
But it is a kind of a committee as well, so that C goes.
Yeah, it can go either way.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So it's a PLC, and you stick in what you want for the C. And the goal of us meeting together is to work on vertical alignment. And so in the past, we've focused on 7th grade math, language arts, science, social studies teams, 6th grade and 8th grade. And now I think we're working on a more regular basis to try and get 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to communicate and work together. So we're trying to meet monthly to do that, which I've actually really enjoyed. I think that's a good thing for us. We've got some new math teachers and new language arts teachers, new science and social studies teachers, and so I think having that consistency across the grades is vital. And then us just getting to know each other and our teaching methods is good. And so we're doing that. We're providing data to each other, and then developing instructional supports that will be across the curriculum for each of our grade levels. And each subject level team, including the elective teachers, are working on developing more cross-grade level data-based instruction. For example, in math, which is what I'm most familiar with, right before Christmas, we took our second benchmark test in Moby Max so that we could compare where the students were at the beginning of the year to where they are now. As I'm sure you're aware, we didn't have end of grade tests last year, and so we didn't really have a data point to work from. And so it was good for all of us to be able to look at where our students started this year, just on that original test, to where they are now, and see what's working, see what's not working, and then come back together as a PLC to sort of look at that data and figure out what's working, how we can change things, how we can adjust things, and then also to see the gaps that our students have from spring last year when they kind of went away, and how we can fill those in as we're building for this next year. And so Then for ELA, I know that they're addressing their reading goals, and science and social studies are focused on just a fluid vertical articulation. And the elective PLC is looking at how to accumulate data and use it to promote student growth. ELA has also adjusted their points in Achieve 3000 to better reflect student reading levels and allow more clarity in their reading growth and their reading lexile levels. I'm not very familiar with the Achieve 3000 program, but I know that we use it pretty heavily to sort of determine how our students are growing. And I know that the PLC, the Language Arts PLC, has been working closely with each other to make sure that that's consistent across the grade levels. Another focus for us has been writing across the curriculum, and we're trying to continue that focus. Our ELA team has sort of spearheaded that, and they're adjusting to have a common writing assessment that's used quarterly, and it's used for the entire school so that they can compare data and see how like a 6th grader is writing versus a 7th grader versus an 8th grader, and making sure that there's a continuum there. We also have created an MTSS-A. Okay, so MTSS, multiple tiers of, I feel like I'm going to test.
Multi-tier system of support.
System of support, okay. So I've got like all of these S's. I got to make sure they're in the right places. Okay, so you got the SS. And as a math teacher, I should know that it's important to stick the right thing in for the right variable, right? But 2 S's, we would never have that in the same formula. So we've got the MTSS-A and the MTSS-B team, and we're focusing on our NC star indicators, and I'm not even going to try with NC star because
I've got that.
okay, I was like, I know the NC is for North Carolina, the star I'm not sure about. So our MTSS-A team is focused on goal 4.01, and we've divided our students into tiers, and we're working on evidence-based interventions for each of those tiers. And again, that's within the confines of our current social situation. So we have a flex time that we've built into our actual schedule, and we did that prior to knowing what the schedule was going to look like for this year, with the A schedule and the B schedule and how things have worked out. So we have this flex time that we had built into our schedule in the first place, with the intention of using that as an intervention time for the students that needed it. And we're still using it somewhat for interventions, but it's also our time to work on social emotional lessons. And it's also a time when we're getting the kids that are going to be remote learning for their next 3 days to download all the information that they need, make sure that they have their worksheets, make sure that they've got all of the things that they need. So we're providing a lot of support during that time frame, and it's not specifically MTSS interventions, it's just trying to make sure our kids are okay. And then we also have an MTSS-B team. Teachers are providing input on students, and we're trying to help identify those students that may need additional supports based on what we're seeing in the classrooms and our knowledge of those students. And then our social worker and our counselors are working together to provide supports to those students as much as possible. And then again, we're teaching weekly lessons in our flex time that is on these social emotional topics. And you know, it's just a time for the kids to talk to each other and sort of, I don't know, like today I played a Kahoot on empathy, just so the kids were kind of learning but having fun and socializing with each other 6 feet away with their masks on, but laughing and having a good time, which I think is important for them to do in school. And I think we're doing that across the board. And then our middle school administration is also focused on promoting staff morale and keeping our Swain Middle School spirit and family strong. And I think that is super important because our level of comfort and solidarity with each other radiates off to our students. And I feel like it gives us a better environment for our students.
That's true.
Do you guys have any questions? Did I do okay with the acronyms?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right.
Cody would love to explain what every one of those are, you know, from Kahoot to MTSS to NC Star to ABCs.
All I need is the foundation. Once I get it, I can go from there.
Okay. But for us to get through all of that, we would still be here a long time from now.
Right.
But we will do this for you if you want to, and that is if you ever want to just sit down and talk about these things. I'll be happy to, and I've got experts in every one of these that can help you understand it. Just know that what Jennifer is talking about and what the others are talking about, we're all heading for the same direction, and that is that devil grad who is ready to perform whenever they graduate, however they want to perform. And I think we're doing a pretty good job at that, but there's still room to grow, as always. Any questions for Jennifer?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least is our flagship, which would be the high school.
So for those who don't know me, I'm Ashley West. I teach American history and now world history at the high school.
That's the only course, by the way, that even counts.
Exactly. I agree. This year, while looking at all 12 key indicators from NC STAR, the high school has chosen several key areas of focus. The first being more attentive to students' emotional states and needs, and helping them guide their emotions during this unprecedented time and dealing with that added stress. This is actually part of our school-wide WIG, our widely important goal that's part of our professional development plans. This year, to address this goal, teachers are to focus on intentionally including one social and emotional strategy a week in their lesson plans. Some teachers have used mood check-ins, just a Google form, how are you doing? And then that comes on a Google spreadsheet to them, and they can say, okay, so-and-so is having a rough day, maybe I need to pull them aside and talk to them. Other teachers have used maybe some 7 Habits training discussion questions, like, well, what are some of the obstacles in remote learning? How can we work through that? Kind of just gauging where the students are and helping them work through that added stress and what comes with living in a pandemic world. Also, to help with morale, administration has been doing activities during lunches. This has ranged from trivia to little minute to win it games, just to get the kids laughing and engaged with each other. Also, we are looking to provide more training on the social and emotional components to get out to staff some more strategies that they can use in their classroom on a daily basis with students. Secondly, the high school is focusing more on departments developing standard aligned units of instruction. What that means is looking at our Swain core units for each grade and subject and making sure that they're meeting the changing state standards curriculum-wise. Wednesdays have been a big help with this to allow department PLCs to get together, develop unit plans, revise them, review the state standards. 3 of our departments have actually chosen this as their department goal for the year. I know coming from the social studies department, we do have many changes on the state level curriculum-wise, so we're looking at our Swain core units and working together to address those changes. Also, for the fall semester, several teachers who share the same preps have worked to develop common final assessments in place of the former NCFEs. For example, the social studies final exams no longer exist on the state level. So I worked with other teachers who share the same classes to develop a common final exam that we can gather data from and now use our time on Wednesdays to address that data of any student growth or deficiencies in learning that need to be addressed. We are also looking at how we can help kids transition from grade to grade and level to level. In previous years, this has been our open house, freshman academy tours, but now living in a pandemic world, we're looking at more virtual options and paying very close attention to how we help Plan C students perhaps transition to Plan B. How do we help them manage this added stress and deal with any academic deficiencies due to loss of normal 5-day-a-week instruction time? And then lastly, we are putting more of a focus on distributing leadership across the school. Wednesdays have been a great help with this to allow our teams, our department PLCs, our MTSS team, our CARE team, and the NC STAR team to get together to work on our agendas and continue to move forward in the current situation. Do you have any questions?
Ashley, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once we finish our discussion items and return from closed session, we'll be asking for you to approve those. just as your stamp of approval that they've been presented and that you trust us with where we're going. These are not like our school improvement plans used to be, where they would go and they would sit somewhere. These are living documents, and that's the beauty of the NC STAR process. There are meetings that continue, conversations that continue for the remainder of the school year, and these are adjusted as we go. So it's true continuous improvement. That's one of the reasons that we've moved to that process. Brandon, or anyone else, is there anything that you want to add before we move on? Okay.
Stephanie, if you give your report, then I'm going to recognize somebody when you get through before we go into closed session. So if you come on up and do your budget report, please.
So the budget amendments that have been proposed for state, one of the budget amendments was to budget the final allotment for transportation. Transportation, we always get about an 80% allotment initially, and then in December we get our final allotment. That was $134,763, which brought our total allotment for transportation to $729,685, as compared to the prior year, which was about $702,000. So no reduction in the current year, which is a good thing for transportation. The other budget amendment in state was had to do with the coronavirus relief funds. We received a total of $363,483 in COVID relief funds. And as you recall, I told you that they put those in several different buckets. They wound up allowing us to transfer those funds to different PRCs within COVID relief funds. We had about $40,000 that was unspent that we were able to transfer. We transferred $7,210 to purchase additional cybersecurity software. It's about $62 that we're short on for our student devices. And then the remainder of $33,434 we've transferred to the our COVID relief funds for low wealth, which has the most flexibility. And we use that to pay a portion of the cost for the additional nurse that we hired at the pre-K and some of the 20% of the time that we added for our other nurses at other schools, and also to cover a portion of our online learning program. So those funds have now been completely spent or encumbered. We're still awaiting our student devices, which we hope will be here sometime this month. But other than that, everything has been spent. In the federal fund, the only amendment was an amendment to budget $350,000, which was for the iCares grant that we have been awarded, and I think Mr. Sell notified you of that grant award. And this was just putting the budget in for that grant. In capital, there's a budget amendment of $2,498.62. That was for a donation that we received from Duke Energy for the lighting at the new barn. And then in the special revenue fund, there was $29,750. That was for the additional instructional supply money that we have allotted to classroom teachers. And then we had $17,545. That was for funding that we've received from the Department of Child Care. And that was allotted for COVID bonuses, specifically for pre-K teachers and staff. And then the other amendments were just reallocation by purpose code. Are there any questions on those budget amendments?
That bonus that she was talking about, that again falls back to what I was mentioning a few minutes ago about how pre-K falls under a different supervisory capacity than the rest. And there have been some who have asked, well, why did we not get that bonus? That's because it wasn't in that funding source. It didn't come from DPI, it came from somewhere else. And that's the best that we can do right now.
Okay. So I also gave you a report of the budget to actual, and I've just noted on there a few programs
If there was any in the red, under the state funds, there's 3 that are guaranteed allotments, so we don't actually budget for those until the end of the year, once we see what our final expenses are, because those are just guaranteed allotments that the state gives us. The other ones had to do with the transfers that we did in the COVID relief funds to do what we call an ABC transfer, but that's the transfer between funding sources. So the budget amendments, if approved tonight, will take care of those programs that are overspent. We had to, at first, the state told us we had to have all those funds spent by December 30th, and then that was because it's basically because of the federal government, and the federal government, then the House and Senate passed it to extend those funds, but the president had not yet signed it, so we were wavering back and forth, but we wound up just getting ours spent, so that's why those are over budget. And the only other area that was over budget was because we had already had to pay out 1 month of the COVID bonuses to the pre-K, so once those budget amendments are approved, that will take care of that one that's over budget. Other than that, the budget by purpose code, everything is in line. As you can tell, state is right at 50%, which is where we should be at the end of December. Everything else is well within budget, and so we should be in good shape for right now. So.
And we'll do the action on this when we come back. Thank you.
And if you don't mind to sign those.
I will. I've got them right here somewhere to sign. And I just noticed before we go to closed session, I noticed Mr. Mike Clampett walked in, our representative from the state of North Carolina. Mike, if you want to say or have a word. And let me tell a little story, Mike. It helps to have people that you know that you can call if you need educational needs. And 3 years ago, remember, we were in a crisis with hiring a superintendent because we couldn't hire a superintendent because their wives worked in the system. And that was the law. And when I contacted Mr. Mike, he started working down in the state legislature and trying to get this done, and it took all year. And by 2 summers ago, maybe, or somewhere around there, when we hired Mark, as soon as we hired him, they actually passed a law that changes that now so we can hire spouses. But that was the law, and Mike helped us with that, and I appreciate that.
Since we're social distancing, let me pull that. I have a double layer, so it makes it real hard to talk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me a few minutes to speak, and good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity again to serve in Swain County in the state legislature. One thing about this year, it will be different. The Senate will be starting the budget, so any appropriations that you may be looking forward to, get those to me just as early as you can so that I can lobby the other folks that's over there that's friendly to us, that they may know what our intentions are and what we want to do. Another thing is I wanted to bring up about fines and forfeitures to be sure that you're getting those monies on a timely manner. A lot of places, a lot of the counties in the state don't know those monies are out there or available, and I want to make sure that those monies get here. I do know that the AOC, Administrative Office of the Courts, for your benefit, is a little difficult sometimes of garnering any information from, but I think, Mr. McKinney, as you know, I'm very persistent, and I'll get that information eventually. Also, as usual, my mantra is I want to be the most accessible and available legislator in my district and even the state. So my phone number is 828-736-6222. Anyone that has a question at any time can feel free to give me a call. You don't have to call Raleigh. I can give you that number too, but I'd rather you just call me direct. It cuts down the middleman. It cuts out having to schedule that time and the secretary, et cetera. There's no problem with that. Feel free to call me. Our conversation will be our conversation as such. If you want to email me, you can email me on my personal email if you like. That is Mike Clampett, lowercase, 119@gmail.com. Or if you like, you can send it to the legislative email address, mike.clampett@ncleg.gov. Just remember, any communication through the state channels are public record. So pretend anytime that you're sending a message, you're talking to your mom or your grandmom. Just something to remember. Well, some folks just don't remember that sometimes. So, is there anything I can do for you tonight, Mr. Chairman, or any board members here?
I haven't made my list yet, but no. No, I appreciate it, and Mike means this. I called him back then on several occasions. We had a lot of different discussions, and he does respond to it, and I appreciate that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll try to be very attentive to that. To me, it's nice going to Raleigh. I mean, that's icing on the cake, but actually constituent services and services in the hometown and all the counties is what I do is the most important. So, and it's anything from problems with one of the wildlife areas not having enough flights or the undergrowth being cut, to insurance issues, to unemployment checks not getting cut. So there's a whole array. My LA this time, by the way, has been there 25 years. She's worked in the Senate, new to the House in a sense, but she knows the process, and we communicate, even though I'm distant, on a daily basis. So whatever we got going, we keep up to date with it. I'm leaving in the morning. We're having ceremonial swearing in on Wednesday at 12 noon. If you're interested, you can watch that on the internet. That will be ncleg.gov, I believe, for that. So, and this year we got something different. The House floor will be live, not just audio, and video this time. So, and as usual, all the committee meetings are public record, and you can watch those live as they happen, et cetera. I don't know what committees I've asked to be on, but again, it'll be those committees that have a direct impact to us here in Swain County and Western North Carolina. So,
Mr. Clanton, whenever you are finished with the first session, the first set of meetings, will you be back in Bryson City for a period of time?
yes, sir. Currently, my plan is like it was the last time. This first session is the long session, so we're going to July. I come home usually on probably Friday and spend the weekend, go back on Sunday. It just all depends on how the scheduling goes, but usually our business starts Monday night at 7 p.m. For a short session. It's called skeleton session. We get in, get established for the week, and then we finish by probably about 3, sometimes 4, sometimes it's 5. If it's late on Thursday, I'll wait and come back Friday, because just so you know, it's 313 miles from my back door to the front door of the legislature, and takes 5.5 hours. Sometimes it takes up to 8.5. Last time I went down, it took 8.5 to get back home, because beautiful weather. I don't know what it is, but people just couldn't stay on the road. A lot of them were off, but anyhow.
Well, we'd like to schedule a time with you.
Yes, sir. Just give me a call, and if I'm home and it's convenient, I'll be happy to come wherever you'd like to meet, and we'll meet and talk about stuff. So, and that applies to anybody at any time.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Clanton.
Oh, you have a question, Kim?
No, well, thank you for coming.
Or, excuse me, Madam Attorney. I got the names right tonight at that other, hey, I got my names right at that other meeting tonight. I said height and hair color. I can remember that.
And we're going to go in closed session, but you're welcome to stay. We're coming back out and doing the other stuff, so.
I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, I need to go home packed to leave tomorrow.
You said you had to go to Raleigh. You do need to get rest.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I hold us just a second?
Yes.
And the reason that I need to put a hold, or ask you to do that, in conversation with our board attorney a little while ago, he suggested that we have a conversation before we go to closed session.
Okay.
Because the topic, although we would like for it, I would like for it to be closed session, in some ways, cannot be. It has to be public record. And that has to do with our COVID numbers and where our schools are. Now, I'm comfortable following your lead on this, and if you would prefer that we...
No, that's, my apologies on that. We've changed this thing around so many times now. I've just got marks and arrows everywhere. We did decide to do that before we went into closed session. So let's go ahead and, before we do that, we'll go to B and C on yours, and that's the health department, and Allison couldn't be here, and Mark's going to give his report in the school system COVID status.
You should have in your pack of information there the report from Allison, and it's in color. It looks very much like what we have seen in the past. Do you have a copy of this? Jerry?
I've got it stuck there. I've got this one that you gave out.
Well, I have a copy for you, if I could just remember what it
I
is.
believe we have that copy, do we? Yeah. You got it?
Let's look and see if it's in this one.
Okay, I hadn't looked through this other.
Well,
Yeah, I've got it here.
okay, you got it? All right. Do you have it, Cody?
Right
I
here
just
with it.
gave it out
What's the front?
when I walked in.
Oh.
It's all right. New information. I know, papers everywhere, I'm sorry.
You're good.
At every meeting, we've had Allison's come in and she's given us a report. She gives us a lot more numbers than I'm going to share with you tonight because I don't have all those numbers. I think the ones, in my opinion, that are important for us to see are the number of current active cases. And there were 115 identified continued active cases since the last time they gave a report. Another important number to me is the number of new positives, and I am assuming and believe that those new positives are since the last time that they gave a report, and the number there is 45. Now, I've been watching these numbers. 45 is actually a little lower than it was at the end of last week, but we are averaging somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 additional positive diagnosis between each of the times that the health department is giving us a presentation like this, okay? And we are continuing to have over 100 active cases in Swain County for the last several weeks. That's concerning to me. What is more concerning is the fact that we had 10 positive cases in just our staff members over the break, over Christmas break. Last week we had 6 positive cases from our staff members, and this week we've already had 1. And I believe that came over the weekend. From our students over break, we had 19 positive cases. Last week we had 8 more in our students, and today we had 2 more reported. We closed a classroom at the pre-K at the end of last week because we didn't have enough staff to keep that classroom open and to do it safely. This afternoon, I determined that we needed to close another classroom at East Elementary because it was a kindergarten room, because we didn't have enough staff to keep that open. I've also learned today, after looking at numbers, that we have an enormous, in my opinion, an enormous number of people who are considered close contacts in our students. And all of these pieces are coming together for me and are creating a heightened level of concern that I have not experienced since August. I believe at this point, in order for us to take care of our staff, because we have asked our staff to work in some very difficult conditions, and we ask for them to come in and to continue and serve our students, knowing that it's very possible that they could take something home and share it with their family. I believe that it is time for us to take a step backwards. And I don't like this. I don't like saying this. It has not been my desire since the beginning of the year. But I believe that it is time for us to move back to remote Plan C across the district. We have too much COVID activity. It's affecting our staff in too many areas. It's affecting their families. And our students are beginning to show increased levels of absenteeism because of it. So my recommendation to our school board tonight is that beginning Thursday of this week, that Swain County schools move to full remote instruction for the remainder of the month of January. That's about 3 weeks. That will give us an opportunity to put all of our pieces together to try and get our staff into a place of wellness again, and also give us an opportunity to look at the numbers that are going on around us, and if we need to readjust, we can at that time. The reason that I've selected Thursday is it is not impossible. It is difficult for us to turn from where we are right now on a dime and go to full remote instruction. And I believe that our schools need an opportunity to plan for that a little bit, and we at the central office need to work with them as well. So tomorrow would be considered a teacher work day. Wednesday, I would count as a teacher work day as well, and then I would like to move to remote instruction on Thursday. Now, if you want to give me the authority to make that decision on my own, I'll be happy to. But I would like to take you along with me in that decision-making process. To be very, very honest and frank with all of you right now, the burden of watching our staff work so hard and the concern that I have for them right now is overwhelming. And I have to make this move and recommend this to you to take care of them. So I would ask that you would support me on that and let us move forward from there. Now, the conversation is yours from that point.
I tend to agree, Mark. We know that children are supposedly safer here, but teachers aren't. And we have some teachers real sick. I mean, we've got some that are in the hospital, and we owe them to make sure that they are in a safe environment, and it's worked for us. But personally, I feel a 3-week break will kind of get us through that little surge that comes after the holidays that we keep hearing about. And we've had a surge here. So I would tend to support that. And that's because this is, heaven forbid, if we lost somebody, we'd never get over it. And as much as I'd like to see kids stay in school, and we all are affected by that, I think, then that's my feeling.
I mean, I agree. It's not what we fought for from the very beginning since August, and I know you've worked very, very hard, and everybody else has too, to keep the kids in school, and that's what we want to see. But we also have an obligation, I think, to clearly the teachers, staff, and our community at large as well. So I regret and hate that we are where we are, but I will support you in your recommendation.
Thank you.
I support you also. I mean, it's sure that it's not what we've been fighting for, not what we wanted, but as a board, as administration, we have to protect our kids and staff. And we kind of thought this might be coming. We didn't know. That's why we tried our best to continue the path we was going. We have to back you on this.
No, I appreciate that, Travis.
And I want to make sure that of course, Mr. Superintendent, I support you as well, but I want the public to know that this is an ever-changing situation. This is not something that we have weeks advance notice on making a decision, and one that we are hiding from them in any way. These decisions are literally can be made, and in fact are being made minute to minute, day by day. This is it's there's not premeditation on anybody's side to hide the ball or to spring anything on the general public. We certainly appreciate and understand the level of stress, inconvenience, scheduling conflicts that this creates for parents, that this creates for students, creates for faculty and staff of all of the schools. But you have to understand that anytime that we're dealing with a situation like this, that we have to take the entire picture, and we have to look at it all. We can't look at it in a vacuum. We can't look at it on individual bases. We would love to do that, but we can't. We're looking at a systematic approach to the health, education, safety, and welfare of the children, the faculty, staff, teachers, everyone in Swain County educational system. And that's what we're having to do. We're having to make these decisions right now. And that's a hard thing to do, is to make split-second decisions, not necessarily split-second, but decisions based on the information that we have now and information that could change tomorrow. So with that, I just wanted the public to know that. I wanted the public to also, as we appreciate where you're at, we hope that you also appreciate the decisions that are having to be made by everyone here, as well as yourself, and those being made by the principals and the teachers.
And I appreciate you saying that, Cody. When I woke up this morning and came to work, this was not my plan. If it had been the plan, I would have brought that to you last week so that parents could have had more of an opportunity to develop a plan for themselves. And to the community, I regret that it's happened like this. But the numbers became very real today. And we have to move forward in that direction. So thank you for saying that. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I don't know that we need a vote unless you want to, but we can adjourn to closed session since that has been put into the public's knowledge at this point.
We have a standing motion that already says that decision can be made at a moment's notice. Does anyone want to, we can go through another motion, but we already have that. That it was so crucial that and he talked to Allison Cochran today.
Yes, I did.
This afternoon, and that was in that motion that once he decided that we had to do that, and that was for, it's actually an emergency declaration. I have one question. Do they have, would you have, then you're not having school tomorrow?
I think that we need, this is critical enough in my opinion to where we need to allow our teachers to have some separation in the buildings, to plan for what's coming ahead, and to keep the students at home. So I would like tomorrow to be a teacher work day, and Wednesday to be a teacher work day. And then we will pick up with remote instruction on Thursday. That is the best that I can do right now, or that we can do.
Have we got a way to get that information out to them tonight real quick?
I'm certain that this conversation that we're having right now is moving across the county pretty quickly. Okay. But we will, we have a statement already that I'll share with you at the end, and we'll get that out to everyone.
All right.
For those in athletic programs, what effect will that have on athletic events upcoming for the next 3 weeks?
I have mixed thoughts on that. I believe that there is a difference between compulsory attendance and volunteer athletics.
So we're going to leave that up to the parents?
I believe that we should.
Okay.
And I think the first step, Cody, on that is to talk to our coaches and to see what level of comfort they have in continuing to move forward. And then if they are comfortable with continuing, then I believe that we should continue our athletic extracurriculars. In some ways, it's safer to do it this way because if there should happen to be spread from athletics, it won't impact the classroom. Now, the board can make a decision about that in any direction that you want, but I really believe in my heart that that's the best direction for us to go.
And that was from I asked that question as almost as leading as an informative question for the general public to know that if you have any further questions about that, then the best source of information would likely be from your student's coach.
Yes.
from this point forward, and then you can make as a family unit that decision whether or not you want to continue to participate in that athletic event.
Now, again, I serve at the board's pleasure, and if you're not comfortable with that, then you need to speak out to that point at this right now, because we can change that. But I really believe there's a difference in compulsory attendance and the opportunity to voluntarily participate in athletics or anything else extracurricular.
My only thought is we're still then at that point putting some of our staff members in potential harm's way
Yes.
in that situation, which is what we're trying to
I agree.
Well, we're
trying to
talking-
stop.
Guess you're kind of leaving that up to the coach too, right? I
Well,
mean,
and that's why I said it that way. If the coach is comfortable continuing on, then they've made that choice. However, Kim, if you believe that we should not give that opportunity for choice, that's fine.
This just, I mean, I've not really thought about it because it's, as Cody was talking about, these decisions are just being made, but I think it's something we need to think about.
My first thought were, when we first knew that we may have to do this, was to shut it all down. Then once I gave it some careful thought, I was the same way. I thought, if the coach is comfortable with it, and the parents are comfortable with it, they're not in the school environment, the rest of the teaching staff and all the staff in the schools are not going to be exposed to it. And so I would prefer probably we look at it case by case, and my other preference would be maybe that the coaches are contacted tomorrow and see how comfortable they are with it, and then you would then can go with from there.
And with that being said, looking at the, seeing if they're comfortable or not, we can also monitor those close just like we have in the past. And I mean, we could shut that down at any moment if we had to.
And it'll, in some cases, most cases, it'll shut itself down. But again, I do understand, Kim, where you're coming from on that. A teacher is required to be in the classroom or take leave. A coach can choose to not coach, and it won't impact their earning capacity in the school system. So I see a differentiation there. But again, I'll do what you all tell me to do on that.
We're talking about this closure extending through, well, opening back up then February 1st is the plan at this point.
That's my intent, yes, ma'am. I originally came and I thought 2 weeks. And then I looked at the calendar, and February 1st is not that much farther out. It's a good breaking point. That can be changed also. Right now, I think it's important that we go to remote instruction for an extended period of time, at least 2 weeks. February 1st is a good date to me. However, if you just want it to be 2 weeks, we can do that too. But we're going to have to revisit this between now and then.
What would change not coming back in 2 weeks or February 1, whatever, what would you want to see?
I would want to see our numbers across the county go down. I don't want to give a number for that. I would want to see that our staff is able to come back to work and be in the classroom. I don't know how we could track the total number of positive cases from students. We can try. And our community has been so good to work with us. That's one of the reasons that the numbers of close contacts are so high, because they're keeping students at home, and that's excellent. So we may be able to monitor that, but I think the biggest piece is, can we bring our staff back, and can we keep them safe based upon the numbers that are around them? I would be happy to bring back some benchmark numbers for you, but the truth of the matter is, at lunchtime, this was not my intent. And then the numbers became, like I said, very real to me, and I think that we need to make this move. If you would like benchmark numbers, I can bring them.
I was just, thinking ahead as to what
Mhm.
the goal is to come back sooner rather than later, so I didn't know if there was something, and I guess in working with, in conjunction with the health
The health
department
department,
officials.
yes.
Well, I think one thing that might help us a little bit would be, like, on a weekly basis next week, and you get with Allison, that you send us again what the numbers are looking like you get, and like we've been getting every 2 weeks. Just get them every week, so we can see that trend, and they give us a feeling that everything's going one way or the other. But hopefully in 2.5 weeks, it'll work out, or 3.
Excuse me just a moment.
We're on agreement on athletics, and let him work that out and get back to us. And again, do that on a day-to-day basis again, like we did the other.
Monitor close.
I just think that's tricky.
It is. It's tricky.
You know, like other school districts are doing that.
So I need to make a phone call in just a few minutes.
Okay.
If we could take a break, please, and let me take care of it.
How much time you need?
Probably 5 minutes.
Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back in and go into executive session.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call us back to order. Ms. Allison Cochran, if you would, please, give us a few words of wisdom.
Oh, I don't know about that now. I was at home this evening, and all of a sudden my phone was blowing up. Why was I closing schools? So I got in the car and I came down here because I don't know what's going on. Mark and I spoke over the weekend. Everything was kosher. We spoke today about a pre-K class and kindergarten class. And then I must have misunderstood, miscommunication between the two of us, and we're going remote all of a sudden with the schools, Plan C. Like I said, maybe I misunderstood what was being discussed earlier, and I'll take responsibility for that. But with our COVID numbers on the county end, we're still good. Our numbers are high. We have lots of contacts. That's very true. But they're just as high as they were weeks ago. But if you're having problems with staff or with a multitude of students being out, I can understand going with Plan C, remote. But I want that to be clear. That's why you're going with Plan C, remote. It's not because the health department told you to go with Plan C, remote.
Right.
So if the issue is with staff, you don't have enough, they're not comfortable doing it anymore, half the kids are out. I mean, I don't know how many contacts there are, but I know there's a lot. Then that's the decision for Plan C. Not because the health department or me or my staff has told you we needed to. And I don't know those exact numbers, I'm sorry.
Right. But, yeah, it was, the primary reason that we were looking at this is staff. We've got some more staff that are sick,
Yes.
one of them seriously. And the other thing is that the more staff we lose, I can't give you the number, but it's just a few staff left that where we'd have to shut down anyway, because we can't cover them.
No, I understand
Yeah, and
that.
it
We've
has nothing-
talked about that before. You can't
Yeah.
get substitutes. And we've always said, if
Right.
you close, it would probably be because of lack of staff.
And Mark let me know that was the decision that he was recommending based on the staff we had, and we're getting a lot of calls from staff too, and letter. But our concern that some of those are now sick, and some of them are seriously sick.
Yes.
And that's the thinking.
And Ms. McKinney, I thought that we were on the same page when I had a conversation with you just before this meeting. And if I wasn't clear, then I'll bear that responsibility. Otherwise, I would have had you here. Because Allison and I were communicating
Oh, yeah.
several times
Yes.
before this started, and you offered to come.
Mhm.
So I don't want this to reflect any way on you. And I don't believe that I've said a single time
you didn't.
that the health department has said to do anything.
Well, you know how things go.
And I truly did believe that we were on the same page. I've not tried to pull the wool over anybody's eyes or to
That's
leave
fine.
you out. But I still stand on on my concern. And that is, we have more and more staff that are out. We have struggled some to fill classrooms with staff. And I think that the best course of action is to give our staff an opportunity to recover from this, to give our students an opportunity to recover from this some, because we have a large close contact number. And I think this is the best way to do that. However, my recommendation doesn't have to be honored. That's fine. I am concerned. And we said in the past that when it got to that point, that we would make a change.
Mhm.
That's where I am. So again, Allison, I apologize to you if I need to. That was not
No,
my
that's
intent.
fine. If Mark is concerned, he has the numbers, then there's reason.
Right.
And I will support Mark in the school system in whatever decision you make.
But if Mark is telling me there is concern within the staff and the students, then there is concern.
Yeah, that was the whole basis, I think, that I was looking at, was the staff's concern and fear. And it had nothing to do with the other numbers. They actually, we'll wait and see on them, but thank you.
Appreciate it. Sorry for barging in.
No, that's fine. You've always been straightforward with this.
You're always welcome, thank you.
So just a curiosity, if you're going to Plan C, we'll still have to do contact tracing and just everything else. How is that affecting sports? So I'll know on my end to tell my staff.
That was a point of discussion just a little while ago.
Okay.
And I believe that we can continue forward with sports because it's a voluntary rather than a compulsory. And the first thing I was going to do was talk to the coaches and see what their comfort is with that. I know that you and I may not agree on that completely.
No, we do not.
Well, why don't you just
Sorry.
share that? It's okay.
No, I mean, it has nothing to do with me as a, well, yes, it does. Let me start over. If you're going to Plan C because you have X number staff out and X number students out because of COVID or being in contact, and you're not able to teach children properly in class, why are you having sports? Why are you having basketball? Because that's what's going on right now, is it not, basketball?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a contact sport. If one player has COVID, that essentially puts the whole team out because it is a contact sport. There's no way to really determine who's within 15 or who's within 6 feet for 15 minutes. And I have always said that from the beginning, and Mark can tell you that, and so can Tommy, that I have always said, when you go to Plan C, in my opinion, there should be no sports.
Okay.
Because of COVID. Because if you're worried about the numbers and the spread, then you need to stop everything. But that's me. And lots of people are different and think different.
Right.
And like you said, it's elective somewhat. So, and like you said, you need to talk to the coaches probably. Which has nothing to do with me this evening, so. But that's
No,
just that's my concern with sports. It's always been a concern, honestly,
Right.
sports has. And we've done very well right before Christmas.
Yes.
With sports. And the coaches and the players and parents have done a fabulous job. So that's just something to think about.
Okay.
This is a conundrum.
It is.
That's a good word.
Because there's value in everything that we're doing. And I truly believe that the best thing for us to do is to protect our staff here, and I don't know how to protect our staff any other way. I'm concerned with the numbers. I understand what Allison is saying. But it is an elective, and parents can choose to not have their students participate in that if that's what they want. A parent cannot choose to not have their student come to school. Now, they could choose Plan C,
Mm-hmm.
but we've seen that our numbers for Plan C, so many of the parents want their kids to be back in school, and they're going to be upset right now. I know that. I don't know how to protect our folks any more than this.
Is it possible to just say 2 weeks and then have another, see where we're at that point in time?
Yes, it is.
And not do sports or anything for those 2 weeks?
It is possible to do that. Yes.
And that's a shorter period, a few days only, but a
Yes.
few days that would, that would get, if it's okay at that point, to put kids back in the classroom, which is the ultimate goal. That's what I'm thinking, but, I'm just one person.
These decisions that are coming up right now, the things that we're talking about right now, there's not a good answer for anything. And we have to have these conversations in the open. So Jerry, I don't know where else to go with this. This is unprecedented for me.
It is, it's not, there's not a book on it.
Well, I mean, the way I feel about it is, I know from the very beginning, in August, the goal was to get the children back in school.
Yes.
I voted for Plan C from the very beginning, thought that was best, and I know where your heart was and where Allison was and where all the administration was in the importance of getting children back in school. And I think that, that's the goal. So when you make a recommendation to take the children out of school, that is a serious one, and I take it seriously. So it is difficult sitting here just, it's not pleasant for anybody to make decisions.
And maybe I need to be, I don't want to say honest, but tell you more of my thought process. When I get a phone call in the afternoon, and I have one of our employees who has now tested positive, and can I prove that happened at school? I cannot, but the suspicion is that it could have happened at school. And now there is talk about that person having not only a positive COVID diagnosis, but pneumonia and looking for a hospital to go to. That gets my attention. And this is what we're asking our staff to step into all the time right now. And it came to a conclusion for me today that I don't, in good conscience, I struggle to ask our staff to continue to do that without giving them an opportunity to recover some and to get our numbers down a little bit. I don't know when they're going to come down, Allison. I don't know. But in good conscience, I couldn't go any other direction than that today. And perhaps I've handled it incorrectly. I don't know. Somebody give me a book on how to handle this.
I don't think there's a playbook for this. I think your reasoning is very valid. It really is. You know the numbers, you know your staff, you have your concerns. Going to Plan C, if he's telling you we need to go to Plan C, then that's probably what you need to do.
Now, the athletics piece is another conversation too.
It is, and it's somewhat part of my business, but then it's really not part of my business. That's more you, the coaches, and your staff.
And that's the reason that I said, let's have a conversation with the coaches and see what their level of comfort is. But if as a group, you believe that if we're going to Plan C, that we need to not participate in athletics during that time, that's what we'll do.
I think having a conversation with the coaches would be the fair thing to do. And also letting these coaches talk to the parents and the kids, because it is voluntary. They do not have to be there. It is, people may think it's wrong, but there's a choice. They do have a choice, and that's just my opinion.
My recommendation to you today is not based on the impact on athletics. My recommendation to you today is based on the numbers that are happening everywhere else and how it's affecting our staff. I didn't come into this conversation tonight with athletics as my primary concern, although it is a concern. Does that make sense? And I don't want the community to think that I don't care, because I do. We're just in a tough place.
The parts that's a struggle, I'll say specifically for me, if there's anyone knows, as a proponent of athletic events in high school, I am probably one of the strongest proponents of that. The issue I struggle with is, though athletics will be voluntary, the voluntary actions of some could infect the involuntariness of others.
It's true.
If the voluntary actions of continuing with sports prolongs the return to in-person instruction, that becomes a problem. Because now a greater number of parents and children now have no decision in the matter and must stay home at instruction because of the voluntariness of some. That's the part I'm struggling with.
I understand.
And that's a hard one. Because I know that sometimes that may be all someone has, and that is something that, you know, they need to do and something that parents look forward to. But I just don't want it to continue. If that's what we're going to, Plan C instruction, I just don't want that sports to play a factor in the reason why we can no longer go back to in-person instruction.
I just got a text from Neil Blankenship that says that if we shut down for 2 weeks, we're going to take kids out of conference races and competition that we can't make up. And that's absolutely true.
With contact tracing being as it is, did we not say a few minutes ago that if we had, like on the basketball team, if we had one positive, that we'd probably take out the whole team? So I guess my point is, one positive, if it takes out the whole team, then we have given them an opportunity at least to work towards it. If they can keep themselves clean, if they can keep from being positive, and we're going to test them, we're going to screen them as they come in, we're going to do the things that we're supposed to do. If they come up positive, if they have a positive, then the team's out for whatever time that their quarantine would be anyway. So we give them at least some semblance of an opportunity to preserve what they're doing. And I know that there's probably people saying, "So what about my kids that are trying to go to school every day?" I hear you. But this is I guess the way to describe it would be, this is a microcosm. This is a smaller piece and much more manageable than what we're dealing with in these other places. Guys, there's nobody that's more of a proponent about getting kids to school than I am. I came in front of everybody every time that we've had one of these meetings, and I sat down and I said, we can do this. I don't want us to get to the point to where that there is absolutely no way that we can before we start to move towards a position of strength. We didn't enter into any of these decisions that we've made this evening lightly, nor were any conversations about this before today, late today. But I hate to see us throw everything out. There are school systems all over this state that are 100% remote, that their athletic teams are still participating. And with that, whatever decision you make, I ride for the brand and we'll do what you say. But I think it's also to be considered the fact that I would like to see us give it a shot. And that's my reasons for saying that. I would have felt remiss if I hadn't mentioned it.
Thank you, Tom.
What is the time period now? On contact, 10 days?
7 days with a negative test, between days 5 and 7. If you don't have a test, it's 10 days. If you're symptomatic during that time and you don't test, it's 14 days.
Let's give it a try. So the understanding again, we had an understanding before, that if there is one, if we find a contact or someone that comes out positive on 18, then it's shut down.
We would discuss with the student, the parent, and the coaches. I mean, when I say the whole team, more than likely it would probably be the majority of the team, but it may not be.
Well, I'm saying that team we're shutting down for 10 days, or 7 or whatever.
Okay, that would be your decision to do that, but on our end, we would do the contact tracing, and if it was everybody except, the coaches would say everybody but these 6 players, then that's what we would go with, because that's what we do to begin with. But in reality, I mean, it could be the entire team.
Right.
Follow the guidelines, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we just go with the regular guidelines. But I want people to be prepared. It could possibly be the entire team.
And that has happened.
Yes.
It happened with our volleyball teams. I mean, it's happened with other
Yeah,
basketball
we
teams.
did shut it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? What if another participating school has a positive? And I think that's happened as well.
It has.
Without, how does that impact our students? If another team that they're in competition with has a positive test when they're in the same environment, same close contact physical activity, such as basketball, how does that?
Such as basketball, we would get in contact with Neil, figure out, identify who the player is that was positive from the other team, determine did they actually play, how many minutes did they play, is there anything, we could narrow it down per se. Even looking at, I think they do film or they video everything. Yes. Even looking at that, I mean, we could look at it, or at least Neil could take that on and identify possibly, if it's their star player, then they've played the entire time, then you're probably looking at the majority of our starters, or at least a couple of them.
If you have someone on the other team who's positive, then that's likely to put all their team at risk.
Yes.
So all that team at risk has had to have some contact with probably all of our team members. So it's just.
Yes, but they wouldn't be the positive unless they went and got tested thereafter within the 2 days, the 48 hours. So we would just focus on that one positive until we were told if there were others.
Mr. Sell, how many other conference or actually surrounding counties, other schools virtual, that still have athletics going on? Do you know that?
I don't have that answer. I just got a message from Neil that says that there are several remote teams remote systems across the state that are still involved in athletics. Cherokee Central has been doing that. But past that, Travis, I don't know. I haven't had an opportunity to look into that. So, Ms. McKinney, I believe we try it, and we let the effect of competition have the impact that it may have, just like we were in school, and we follow those guidelines of shutting down. I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but I'm agreeing with what you said just a minute ago. I understand the concerns that everybody has.
2 or 3 weeks.
I said February 1st, but I also have agreed that 2 weeks would be enough. It'd be a start, because we're going to have to re-examine this as we go and set some guidelines.
Do you have an opinion on that? About the effectiveness of getting our people healthy again, either 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks, right? Because
That's a very fluid situation, given you cannot control a person's nature.
Sure.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's half a dozen. You could go either direction. You're positive right now, you're looking at least 7 to 14 days. So that would be your 2 weeks. Those that might have been infected within the past few days may not even been tested yet. So that's another 2 weeks out.
But that could be extended on to the future.
Exactly. That's my point. It's very fluid, and it can just catapult on down the line per se. So starting with 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that's fine. And like you said, we can come back in 2 weeks and do the numbers, and he can.
We'll be looking at numbers for staff, and we'll be looking at the numbers in the county continually between now and then. It'd be more difficult to track the numbers of the students, but we can track the number of staff.
Was everybody in agreement then that we do it a minimum of 2 weeks and then we probably should meet again.
I would suggest yes.
That would be what we've been doing.
I would suggest that we not wait to meet in 2 weeks. I would
Right.
suggest that we meet in about 10 days, or even sooner, to see what numbers are doing. Because this, Cody, again, I want to say I appreciate what you said a few minutes ago. This affects everyone, and I know that. I know that.
Is everybody comfortable with that? Close it down for 2 weeks, and then we'll meet, maybe Thursday, a week from Thursday?
Yes,
Somewhere around there, we'll look at our calendar, so we can announce it. And then we'll, at that time, see if we're going to extend it another week or 10 days. That sound like a workable plan?
Sounds like a working plan to me.
And then we'll wait on the athletic part until you talk to the coaches and get
Yes.
back with us, and then we'll, right now, we're still going until we find out different. With the understanding again, that if one of them tests positive, or if there's some contact issues with one team, then we're prepared to shut it down, that particular team. Because it has worked pretty well. And our main concern now is staff, and kids too, mainly the staff itself, getting less and less, and we can't run the school without them.
And Allison, again, I apologize to you. Was
May have been
not-
me.
No, it was a tough moment for me.
That's
And
fine.
so, thank you for understanding.
fine.
And to the board, I apologize that this has played out the way that it has,
No, that's not.
but it happened at 4 o'clock today. And I still don't feel like we could have waited any longer to make a decision.
Well, nothing in COVID has worked out like you planned.
So what
It's
is
a day
the,
thing.
so I'll know from my office, what is the date tentatively for students to return?
Y'all, you been looking at the calendar? Anybody?
2 weeks,
25th.
25th, okay.
The return would be the 25th, Monday, the 25th.
Okay.
So we would need to meet the Thursday before, or the Wednesday before,
Yeah.
either one.
Either one.
And just on a side note, while you're looking at that, we're still vaccinating 75 and older, probably will be for at least 3 weeks, I would say, after this week. And then tentatively, we would start on the next group, which is essential workers 50 and above. And at that time, I will get with Tommy to start looking at the school personnel.
Okay.
So we've been getting lots of calls from teachers and such
Sure.
as that. So just to put that out there, I would say it's probably going to be at least 3 more weeks, and that is dependent on what flu vaccine we receive and how much we receive. So just put that out there.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Allison.
Welcome.
Someone has asked, can they still have tutoring services available?
We will work on that, Cody. We have been able to offer tutoring virtually, and that would be our preference now, since we're trying to protect staff. I think that would be our direction. The answer is yes.
Okay.
But we'll have to put those pieces together. That's another reason that I wanted a couple of days. We've been doing that some already. I can see that this is going to increase the need. Okay?
Okay.
The answer is yes.
And of course, Mel.
And Kim will have to do that for a lot of different reasons. We want to support our community. I know that a lot of our students, this is I don't know if it's their primary, but it's a source of nutrition for them. And we also have people who depend on their ability to drive buses and work in cafeterias for their livelihood and their insurance. And so we've worked hard to make that happen, and we'll do our best to keep that going.
Yes, anybody else? Before we need to go into executive session.
Thank you again. Sorry
Thank you for coming.
barging in.
Thank you.
Again, I reemphasize what Cody said, that this is not nobody likes this. I for certain don't like it. I'd rather be home reading a book or doing something, but it's from the heart. I mean, we think we're trying to do the best thing. Whether it's the right decision or not, we'll find out. But it's the decision we think is best for everybody. And there is no best decision.
Not the best answer.
There's just, we're playing it by day, and we're being on top of it day by day. And do we want to, we'll go ahead and set a meeting after we get through. When we meet again, we'll meet again in about 10 days. All right, at this time, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Yeah, I move the Swain County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that's privileged, confidential, and not a public record.
All right, all those in favor, aye? Aye? All right, let's go. We'll be back shortly. We're ready? You know, here we are, here. All right, I'll call us back into session. Let's go to action items. Okay.
What's the matter?
Oh, the batteries are dying on these microphones.
We're wearing them out, are we?
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to just go from the regular agenda, Mr. McKinney.
Do you want to use
All right.
mine?
And if I get lost, you just reel me in, okay?
All right.
All right?
Well, let's start with A, action item A, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
How many different sets of minutes do we have in there?
I've got December the 17th, December the 9th, November the 30th, November the 9th, and December the 30th special meeting.
Then I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve of all of those sets of minutes as they have been presented to you.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for November 9th, November 30th, December 9th, December 17th, and December 30th, 2020.
Second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor by aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion's carried.
Personnel is going to be a little bit complicated. Do you have the recommendation with the names on it? It should look like a chart of sorts. Like, that's it right there, Mr. McKinney.
Right there. You
And
need
there
it?
should be a second page.
There
It was
is.
in what I gave to you when we first started, I believe, right there.
You need this copy?
Oh, I got it right here.
Okay.
You got it, Cody?
I do.
Okay. I recommend Swain County Schools employ Hannah Clemmer as a social worker at East Elementary School. Her starting date is to be determined. She has a clear background check.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? All right, any opposed? Motion is carried.
I recommend that Swain County Board of Education employ Katie Walls as a first grade teacher at East Elementary. Her starting date is also to be determined. She has a clear background check.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion is carried.
I recommend that David Barker be employed as a full-time custodian at East Elementary. That's due to a transfer of Doug Dixon. His start date would be January 12th of 2021.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion is carried.
I recommend that Swain County Board of Education employ John T. Nations as a 28-hour custodian for the Swain County High School to replace Mary Sherrill, who will be looking at a resignation in a minute. Start date is January 12th, 2021.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion is carried.
The next position is to support what our video group are doing. Joe Holt does everything that he can, but there's only so much of him to go around. So I recommend Swain County Board of Education employ Kent Maxey as a PT film assistant beginning January 5th, 2021. That's an hourly position.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion is carried.
I recommend that the Swain County School Board employ Janice Brooks to an after-school position. Her background check is pending, but Janice has been part of our school system for dozens of years. And the start date on that will be the same as all of the other after-school positions. As soon as we can get the program up and running, they'll start. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. All right, do we have a motion?
Just to be safe with that, I'll move that that will be the case pending a clear background check.
Yes.
We don't anticipate, but I'll make that motion pending a clear background check.
Thank you.
Second.
And second, any further discussion? All right, all of approval, show by a show of hands? Motion is carried.
Would you entertain the idea of employing all of the next 5 as a group, or do you want me to call them out individually because it's all for the same position? It's for after school. They have clear background checks. Do you want me to go person by person?
Have they all cleared them?
Yes.
The next 5?
The next 5, yes.
Okay.
I think you could just
Just
put
do
them all
them
in one recommendation.
I recommend that Swain County Schools employ Jessica Janine Hudson, Lola Thomason, Terry Lossy, Brianna Stepp, and Taylor Cochran for the after-school program pending when the program starts. All have clear background checks.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve those named for that position.
Second.
And a second, okay. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I recommend that Swain County Schools accept the resignation of Taylor Hunter as first grade teacher at East Elementary, effective January 15th, 2021.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion is carried.
I recommend Swain County Schools accept the resignation of Mary Sherrill, custodian at Swain County High School, effective December 4th, 2020.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor by show of hands? All right, motion's carried.
I recommend that Swain County Schools accept the resignation of Janet Schuler as assistant coach for soccer, effective January 8th, 2021.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
Mr. Dills, there's a page of names. Do these have to be approved?
This is it's really an FYI, it's an extra duty position that will be people that work for us presently that will also be part of the after school program, just so that you guys will know that it is an extra duty position. Kind of like we do our coaching slate, we do that in March typically, but it's just a group of names that they already work for us, they're clear, that these are the people that have expressed interest in being our school.
Okay.
So you have that list, that's an FYI. The after-school program that is going to be put in place through the ICE Care funding is going to be very extensive. We could be looking at as many as 30 to 60 employees for this, once it's all done in various capacities. Okay? That's all of the personnel that I know of, correct? Okay.
All right, we need to approve all these in at one time.
I
Everybody
don't
agree
think
with
that we need to approve them.
Do we?
I believe, Mr. Dills, that that's just an FYI.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
all right. They're already employed, all right.
Yes. Action item C is policy 4060. I recommend Swain County Schools approve policy 4060 as it has been presented to you after our session this evening. Correct, Stephanie? Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the policy 4060 as presented.
Second that.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I recommend that Swain County School Board approve the budget amendments as presented by Ms. Treadway.
Okay, do you have a motion?
Motion.
Second. All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? All right, motion is approved.
I recommend that the Swain County School Board approve the NC STAR reports for the district, the pre-K, East, Middle, and High School. We'll present the West at another time.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the NC STAR reports as presented this evening at the meeting.
Second.
And a second, all right. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion approved.
I gave to you a resolution of gratitude or appreciation. I worked on this last week and sent it to Campbell and Shatley today to look over. What you have in front of you is the copy that was sent back to me. I believe that it states what has happened, and I believe that it appropriately recognizes all of the individuals that have been involved, including those who we've spoken about before. But as I wrote it, I recognize that there are some others that probably need an opportunity to be recognized too, including Phil Berger and Tim Moore, because really a substantial amount of funding came out of their offices.
Right.
Now, people may have different political opinions of them, but they did help us in these areas. So if you are satisfied with this, then I would ask you to approve it. If you would prefer to have some time to look at it, that's fine too. What we will do once something like this is done is we'll put it on something that's much more presentable and have all of you sign that instead, okay? And we can do this tonight, we can look at it again later if you want to, or we can put this off, and when we have our open house at the high school, we can present it then and approve it at that point, whatever y'all want to do.
I just want to go ahead and prove it tonight, and then we'd still present it when we do the open house. If everybody's agreeable with that.
Do we want to read it out so that those people, if it's a public type thing, or?
I think it
Do you
might
wanna
Want me to
be
read it
good
out?
to put on record.
Okay. So this is a resolution of the Swain County Board of Education in gratitude to the supporters of the safety improvements to Swain County High School. Whereas the Swain County Board of Education is responsible for providing a safe and orderly learning environment. Whereas the Swain County High School campus was designed over 4 decades ago when previous community officials constructed buildings with open and easy access for the students, staff, and the public. Whereas since that time, the United States of America has witnessed ongoing threats to school safety, including school shootings and bomb threats. Whereas a panel of safety experts, including local emergency management officials and regional law enforcement, collaborated with school officials in 2017 to develop goals to improve safety at all Swain County school campuses. Whereas one of this panel's primary goals was a single point of public entry for every school campus that provides for selective admission, constant monitoring, and security. Whereas Swain County High School is now able to meet this requirement after its redesign. Whereas the Department of Public Instruction awarded Swain County Schools a $4.7 million needs-based public school capital fund grant to provide for the redesign of the high school campus in 2018 with safety as the primary goal. Whereas the Swain County Board of Commissioners provided $2.3 million for the completion of this construction in 2018. Whereas this funding has provided for extensive facility construction to create a secure south public entrance and separate north entrance exclusively for student and staff. Whereas there remained a need for second traffic access on the north side to provide additional egress and further enhance campus safety. Whereas the Mobile and Safety Division of the Traffic Management Unit, as a subsidiary of the North Carolina Department of Transportation Safety Division, provided a traffic and pedestrian flow plan in 2019 supporting this need. Whereas through a collaborative effort of the Office of the North Carolina Senate President pro tempore, is that how you say that?
Tempore.
The Office of the North Carolina Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Department of Transportation, $1.6 million is now available to complete a north traffic entrance to the high school campus. And whereas because of the efforts of all those listed above, Swain County High School is now able to meet the recommendations of the safety panel and the campus, providing a higher level of safety and security for its students, staff, parents, and visitors. Now be it further resolved that the Swain County Board of Education offers gratitude to the North Carolina Senate President pro tem. Say it for me. Tempore.
I think
Tempore.
I think.
Phil Berger for his and his office support toward this project, and now be it further resolved that the Swain County Board of Education offers gratitude to the North Carolina Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tim Moore, for his and his office support toward this project. And now be it further resolved that the Swain County Board of Education offers gratitude to former North Carolina Senator Jim Davis for his support to Swain County schools. And now be it further resolved that the Swain County Board of Education offers gratitude to former North Carolina representative, while not an elected official for Swain County, and now current North Carolina Senator Kevin Corbin for his support toward this project. And now be it further resolved that the Swain County Board of Education offers gratitude to Jack Debman for his effort in supporting the acquisition of this additional funding. And now be it further resolved that the Swain County Board of Education offers gratitude to Chris Lee and Zachary Schuler from the Western Regional Office of the Department of Transportation and alumni of Swain County High School for their continued support and planning for this project. And now be it further resolved that the Swain County Board of Education offers gratitude to the Swain County Board of Commissioners and County Manager Kevin King for their continued support toward improving education in Swain County. That is our resolution of gratitude that we have read, and you would approve and adopt at your leisure.
Is there any way we could add the names of the commissioners in there?
Yes.
Individually?
Yes.
And it sounded like even when you were reading that, Mark, that you found, it looked like a mistake up there at the very top of the second page.
There's the word further.
Providing.
And provides and providing. You caught it when you were reading it, but read it out the way that it should have read.
Yeah, that's-
And so certainly with what Travis said and listing all the commissioners, make a motion to approve it with those amendments, adding the commissioners and changing provides at the top
To providing.
providing.
All right, have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as
We've got
read
it.
and corrected.
You want to second it? You
Oh,
made the
sorry,
motion.
you made the motion.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Second.
okay. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor by show of hands again? The motion's carried. Thank you.
I don't believe we have any public comments tonight, at least not here.
One quick, I had someone ask the question, they're not here, but they've asked me, is Bright Adventures involved in the move to Plan C as well?
At this point it is, and the reason for that is we've already closed one classroom. We have two other staff members who were previously out of commission, and as I went to talk to somebody just a little while ago, found out that there is another teacher who is now out because of a close contact or a positive, I don't know which.
Okay.
So at this point, Bright Adventures, in my opinion, needs to be included in that. They just don't have enough staff.
Okay. That was just a question.
Okay, good, good. Anything else? All All right, now a motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
One second.
and a second. All in favor by standing up and adjourning. And putting all these papers together.